Join the conversation on 6255 1206. The Canberra Weekender, 1206.
2CC.
Welcome back. Tatjana Clancy here with you, joined by Neil Hermes, our resident ornithologist. And Neil, I've been mispronouncing your name because in the system, someone had written it phonetically incorrectly. So I'm just going to blame someone else.
Tatjana, I think I might have mispronounced your name a couple of times as well.
Oh, that's easy to do.
We're all equal, so that's
easy
fine.
to do. Yeah, because my name is actually spelt with a J in the middle, so people are often doing that. So that is very easy to do.
Well, anyway, we're all good. We know who we are and we know what we're talking about. Thanks, Tatjana.
Now, if anyone has a question for you, 6255 1206 is the number. And you've got some great stories to cover today, Neil.
Yes, look, we've got a couple. One of the stories that I thought we might just chat about is the fact that Canberrans are some most birdie people in the country. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if you saw the stats on this, but there's a thing called eBird, which is an ornithological record base that's kept out of Cornell University in America. And they get people to contribute data, and it's been growing over the last 10 years, and virtually anyone who's in the bird world knows about this now. And when you go out and you make your records, you log it onto your phone, and it all gets recorded in a computer in America somewhere, mm-hmm. and you can keep all your data. And so everybody who's a birder anywhere in the world, anywhere in Australia, records their birds, their records this way. Mm-hmm. And as it turns out, on a per capita basis, Canberrans are 5 to 1, almost 10 times to 1 more likely to be birders than anybody else in the country. We are the bird capital, bird watching capital of the world.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. Yeah, of course we are.
Now, I was talking to someone about this the other day, and they said, well, of course, Canberra's a fabulous place for birds. So maybe it's, the fact that there's so many birds we like bird watching, but then it becomes the chicken and egg thing, doesn't it? Or I shouldn't use that expression, perhaps. But is it because we have such fantastic birds that we're great bird watchers, or we're bird watchers and we get to see all these fabulous birds? I mean, I saw 6 or 7 different species of parrots in my yard sitting having a coffee last evening, and parrots, spectacular parrots.
It sounded like you were saying the parrots were sitting and having a coffee, yes.
Well, they were virtually having a coffee with me as well. But, overseas they get very excited about a chaffinch or something, and look, they're lovely, I know, or a jay or a cardinal. But, our king parrots, corellas, rainbow lorikeets, superb parrots, just beautiful birds, and we have lots of them. So is it any wonder that we're one of the bird capital? Certainly the bird capital of Australia, and potentially one of the capitals in the world in terms of our interest in birds.
Yeah, and I guess we're the bush capital, and it's so easy just to get out amongst nature, isn't it, where we are?
It is. We are spoilt for choice in terms of places that we can go and ways in which we can all, within a few hundred metres of our house, have an experience in the bush. That's certainly the case.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, Lake George, it's interesting to just see it filled with water, let alone the fact that there's birds back there.
Look, Tatjana, I'm going to show off a bit here, and I suspect you're a little bit younger than me, but I remember fishing from the road, the old road, the Lake George Road, fishing from the road into the water in the 1960s. So the water was lapping the edge of the road back in those days. Now, and look, it's been very dry for decades since. And look, it's not. I was talking to someone about the other day. They said, 50 years, that's a long time between, being full. The lake has been around 5 million years, and it goes up and down all the time. Mm-hmm. And over the last couple of decades, we've been used to it, seeing it dry with lots of quail and lots of pipits and lots of magpies. But right now, it's, getting towards half full, 3/4 full. And, of course, it's a spectacular place for water. Lake George, when it's full, is the largest lake in New South Wales.
Oh, right.
So it's 30 kilometres long when it's full. So it's an enormous area of water. And look, we would have more birds out there at the moment if we hadn't had so much rain in the inland. Australia has just been, I saw some footage the other day of Unadata Track, flooded. I mean, and so the water birds have spread out across the whole country. But as the inland dries up and Lake George still has water in it, there'll be even more birds, and you'll be able to stop at any of those little roadside stops along the way. You're heading up towards Sydney, and just from the road edge, you'll be able to see swans and teal and ducks and herons and egrets. a fantastic flourishing of the lake again after a long time between drinks.
That's fantastic. Now, a new bird, or I should say, sorry, a rare bird has made an appearance in Cambridge. Tell me about this one.
Well, now we're talking about Cambridge, New Zealand here, aren't we? We're not
yes.
We're talking about New Zealand. So they ended. When I first saw the story, I thought, my goodness, an Australian bittern has turned up in the UK. How did that happen? But they're talking about a New Zealand observation of this bird. I think that was, I saw the story. But look, bitterns, wherever a bittern is seen, they are very rare birds. In Australia, they're extremely rare. The Australian bittern is an extremely endangered bird. And this particular one turned up in New Zealand. It's rarer than any of the famous New Zealand birds, the kakapos and other things. So they're a reed-dwelling bird. There'd be some of these potentially out at Lake George if we get some reed beds developing along the edges of the water. They hold they're a nocturnal bird. When they land, they put their bill pointing straight up. And so when they're standing in the reeds, and their plumage has lines on it. So it's sort of like a zebra, except it's brown. And it just merges into the reed beds. They're very hard to see. I think the one that was reported turning up in the garden at this house was a young bird, and it was a bit tame and a bit unusual. There's some unusual behaviour, but we do get occasionally Australian bitterns out at Jerrabomble wetlands, just near Fishwick there. And even when we know they're there, they're hard to see. A very rare bird. By the way, the bittern is the bird that people attribute the story about the bunyip too, because it has this weird call at night, it's one of the species that we think might have contributed to the story about the Australian bunyip.
Oh, okay. There you go. There's a bit of trivia for you. Now, I like this next one, that a woman has set a bird watching record. She spotted 726 species in 2021. That's impressive.
Hey, I'd love to meet this lady. I mean, she's one of mine. Yes, her name is Kieran. And she what happened? Bird watchers like to keep lists, and she decided she'd do a big year. Now, a big year is you set a task for yourself for the year to see a certain number of birds in a certain place. It might be in the ACT or in Australia or in the world or wherever. And she set herself the task of seeing as many birds as she could see in what they call the lower 48. So that's all the states of America, other than Hawaii and Alaska. And the record was sort of up around in the just over 700 odd. And she saw 700 species in mainland US by the 1st of October.
Wow. But so how is this proven, Neil? I'm a little...
Well, Tatjana, before we get to that, she then set herself the task of getting the record for any record, not just to get to 700.
Yeah.
So she then spent the next 3 months seeing the next 25 birds, and became the American, person who's seen the most number of birds. How do they test? Well, look, there's a certain amount of honesty in it, but look, once you start to proclaim that you've seen, say 500 or 600, I mean, sure, you might have not quite seen this one or not seen that, but people have been watching very carefully, and every bird she saw in that latter part would have been confirmed by people that should have had confirmation with others who were with her at the time.
Yeah.
And there's a serious amount of vetting goes on, if you really want to try and get one of those big tallies. I mean, if I was to just do it for myself for the ACT and see if I could see 250 species in a year, I'd be cheating myself if I pretended. But it's really about, Tatjana, it's really about the if you can do these sorts of things, it's not just keeping the list. What it's doing is it's honing your experience and your skills as a field bird watcher, and it really tests you out against yourself. It's a bit like a marathon running or whatever. You're testing yourself against yourself. And in the bird world, that's one of the ways you can do it. And 725 species in 1 year in mainland USA, that's amazing. Given that there's only 10,000 species on the whole planet, that's not bad.
That's a pretty good strike rate. And now, lastly, a new bird.
A new bird for the Australian list you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so we're getting back to the list thing. So in Australia, people talked about, we had about 800 species or thereabouts of birds in Australia up until, a decade or so ago. But then we started carefully looking at birds in places like Broome and Arnhem Land. And it turns out that we get odd birds that come across from Indonesia, from the Philippines. One or two birds get blown in by a storm or whatever, hang around in these remote parts of Australia, and then presumably they die or they migrate back to wherever they're from. And in the last couple of weeks, we've had at a couple of roadside stops in Broome, not only just the caravanners turning up for a refuelling stop, but we've had a couple of the first time we've seen these particular flycatchers, I think they were, and a warbler who have turned up. The only one ever recorded in Australia, alive, recorded, in photographs, and so they're definitely here. And they turn up on places like Ashmore Island, which is just off the coast of the Kimberleys, and sometimes in Christmas Island as well. These very rare birds. And so Australia's list of birds is slowly creeping up. It's up over 900 species we've got recorded in the country now.
Wow. Again, that makes that woman's birdwatching record even more impressive when you think about that.
Yeah. Now, years ago, I did add a bird to the list myself. When I lived on Norfolk Island, I saw the very first Laysan albatross in Australia, and that became the first record. Because, of course, when you're in these remote places, that's where you're likely to see these odd things that turn up. And this albatross turned up. They only occur in the northern hemisphere, and this poor one ended up crossing the equator and ending up in the southern hemisphere, which is where they aren't found normally. And it just turned up in Norfolk. So, if you're lucky and you're in the right place, you may pick them up. But certainly, that effort of 776 is 725 is not luck. That's very hard work to get that list.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Neil, if people want to follow your adventures, where can they find you online?
They can come to me and check out things at neilhermes.com.au. I've got tours that I take out. I've got local tours, birdwatching, beginners birdwatching things. I have a weekly wrap that I put up where I talk about things from around the world. So neilhermes.com.au. And they can put in and ask me. So if they've got a question, they can send something through. They can also send it to you, Tatjana, and we could do it on the radio. Yes,
always. Neil, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. And happy birding this weekend. Are you going out? I guess there's storms coming.
I'm going to be birding on the south coast this weekend, which will be a bit of a treat. Getting out and about, which is great.
Fantastic. Well, Neil, always a pleasure. We'll catch you again next week.
Thanks, Tatjana. Ciao.
Thanks so much. That's Neil Hermes, ornithologist, and is a regular on our program if you've ever got a birding question.